Hey, what's going on, boys? It is day number 13 of reading through the book of Deuteronomy. Today, we're going to be looking at a pretty interesting passage. I do believe this passage kind of connects to what we were talking about yesterday, and it's going to kind of tie into what we're going to talk about over the next few days. And I just want to say that the things that are mentioned in here, these are things that were mainly set for the people in the Old Testament. And one of the things that I was able to kind of derive from my readings today was the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so, the title of this passage is called Worshiping Other Gods. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit with forms of idolatry and just kind of, being tempted away from God by these things that kind of self-please us, that make us feel like more powerful and just overall make us happy in ways that, we weren't really getting from before, because God doesn't just give us whatever we want whenever we ask him to. So what does this mean? Well, the first thing that I want to take a look at is in the kind of first little section of chapter 13. And this section spans from the start all the way to verse 5. And I kind of want to just pinpoint this little section right real quick, verses 3 through 4. It says, "You must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. It is the Lord your God you must follow, and him you must revere. Keep his commands and obey him, and serve him and hold fast to him." So kind of going back to the start of this, so at the beginning it talks about how sometimes you're going to be shown these visions or dreams, or kind of have these prophets come into your life and tempt you away from God by saying, hey, if you follow me, I can give you this. And a lot of times it's cases of, hey, if you do this, I can give you this. It's always, well, if I deserve this, like I've been going through all these terrible things, I want to worship somebody who's going to give me stuff. And a lot of times it's money, or it's people, or it's, in some cases, like for the guys, it would be prostitutes to kind of self-please them. In some cases, it'd be land, it would be slaves. It'd be really different things. And what's happening here is that these things, when they come into your life, the first thing that comes up is the temptation portion. Now, there was a guy that I watched on a Instagram reel one time. It's been a couple of weeks, and I think I've shared this on here already, but he shared that when you're being tempted, you haven't sinned yet. You don't sin until you actually fall into that action of the temptations, whether it's lust or jealousy or anger or masturbation or jealousy or whatever sort of temptation it is. The sin doesn't officially happen until you actually commit it. And so that the temptation phase, that's where God is testing you, and he's allowing these temptations to come in to say, okay, you say you know me well. Okay, let's see how well you know me. There's another thing that I was able to kind of pinpoint from when I was in an orientation for college over the summer. And it was this guy, he's one of the professors, and he was sharing a famous quote. And I don't remember exactly the person he was quoting, but he said that in life, especially when you're in school, you learn lessons to prepare for the test. But in the real world, you are tested every day, so you may learn a lesson. That's how God functions. He tests you a lot. Why does he test you? Not because he hates you or because he wants you to fail. He wants you to suffer. He wants you to learn lessons. You don't learn lessons until you actually get put up to the top. You get put up to the stage. So think about, you're getting put into the boxing ring. Like, some basics. Oh, I got to punch that guy. But you don't know any things about trying to counter, how to, not get punched. And the first time you get in there, you get absolutely just, wrecked. You're beaten up. Your face is red. Your eyes are purple, everything. And she's like, okay, what do I do? How can I get better? It's like, well, you train. You train harder. You talk to people. You talk to people who are experienced in it. And this could be as simple as talking to a lot of, former people who were in that. So it doesn't have to be boxing. It can be literally anything. And with Christ, we get to talk to people every day. And this can be simple as just talking to our parents, or someone else in our family, or a loved one, or a close friend, a teacher, a professor, whatever it is, someone that you can trust, that you have looked up to, and say, you know what, I value that lifestyle, and I want to know more, because all this I'm doing on my own, it's not helping me at all, and God's testing me all the time, and I'm failing every single time. How can I learn to know if these tests are going to better me? And the only way you're going to know is if you take it on with a different approach, because a lot of times when you take it on with a different approach, you don't fall into the sin. Prime example, I'm constantly tempted with lust all the time. And one of the things that I've been able kind of to pinpoint is that when I fall into it, I'm unorganized. I don't have things set straight. I don't plan out my day as far as when I'm gonna, do things, when I'm gonna eat my meals, what I'm gonna do when I read the Bible. I'm not prepared. But when I'm organized and I say, okay, I'm gonna do this at this time, I'm gonna do this at this time, I'm gonna, go to bed at this time, whatever. And I think a lot of us can kind of relate to that. When you're organized, you're a lot more focused, you're more disciplined, and you get things done. And this applies more than just work or school. This applies to real life. And for this case, with the Israelites, they are facing all sorts of temptations, mainly because, again, they've been out in the desert for 40 years, and they're like, all right, like, we're getting tired. Like, we want to get this land that's been promised to our ancestors. Like, Lord, like, we're ready to go. Like, what's going on? And every time that a temptation comes up, a lot of them are falling for it because they're like, oh my gosh, like, it's here. And then, what do you know? It's not. So, and I have to remember that these temptations coming up a lot. And sometimes patience is just something that we just cannot fathom with. And we have to remember that patience is something that a lot of us fail with. And we have to remain focused and stay on target with what we're trying to do. And the Israelites are constantly facing these threats. One thing that I want to read that kind of stood out to me a little bit, that again I think is a big difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, was how we deal with other people who worship other gods. How we would deal with other people who, whether they are atheist or they believe in, this other form of mythology or whatever it is, that don't turn to God. Verse 6-8, it says, if your very own brother or son or daughter or wife you love, or your closest friend secretly entices you, saying, let us go and worship other gods that neither you nor your ancestors have known, gods of peoples around you, whether near or far, from one end of the land to the other, do not yield to them or listen to them. Shield them or show them no pity, and do not spare them or shield them. So, one of the things that I kind of pinpointed here, and I didn't highlight it, but I will bring it up, is that one of the things that was mentioned is that the way that people would deal with this back in the day is that they would essentially have these people almost killed. Is they would stone them and basically say they need to be put to death. Their life needs to be a sacrifice to God because they have turned against God, and these people would be essentially murdered. And this is what went on in the Old Testament. And basically what happened is that every time these people were worshiping other gods, they were seen as cursed. They were, possessed by these demonic entities, and this is what separated them. And the people, what they would do is like, okay, we got to eliminate this because this is not okay. And so you may be asking, well, how is it different from? What's the difference between that and the New Testament? Well, obviously, if someone worships another god today, we don't go out and throw stones at their head, because that would be like insanely brutal and not okay. But most importantly, we show mercy to other people because that's what Jesus did. The coming of Jesus was the turning point in the Bible. I've been started rewatching The Chosen today, and I'm rewatching it because the first time I watched it, I only got to season 4, and I want to watch it for the actual meaning of the show. I feel like when I watched it the first time, I just kind of had it on as background noise, and I wasn't really paying attention. So I'm like, I want to turn this on, and I actually want to pay attention. One, because The Chosen is a visual representation of a almost one-to-one of what happened in the Bible that kind of brings into life, because we humans learn when things are visual, when things are in front of us, and we get these shows, and you're like, oh man, this is cool. But what's important is, I get a lot of these clips that pop up on my social media about The Chosen, how Jesus was constantly tempted, and, Jesus is constantly reminding people to show mercy and show love, and to love your enemies, and to love your neighbors as yourself. And one of the things that, again, separates this from the Old Testament is when other people worship other gods or don't believe in anything at all or are just off track, it tells us that we must go to them and share the word of God with them, remind them of who they are. Because a lot of times what this does is that this kind of breaks this little crack in our hearts that we've tried to harden with. And we all know, I believe that everyone knows who Jesus, what his impact has. Every time someone hears the word Jesus, like, even if they don't, aren't happy by it, they know that it means something. They know it is powerful. They know that, like, that word has a lot of meaning, and a lot of people are afraid of it because they know that they've messed up. And so they try to run away from it, or they try to say, oh, well, I'm not like this. I'm more powerful. I can do this all by myself. But what's good about that is that we don't have to do that. We don't have to be like these people in the Old Testament. We don't have to sit here and say, well, you're not worshiping God. You need to be stoned. You need to be taken care of. Like, you don't deserve to be a part of, this friendship or group. That's one of the greatest parts about the church today, is that we get to invite people of all kinds. It doesn't matter who you are. Jesus invites you to come as you are. You don't need to clean yourself up before Jesus. Jesus calls you for who you are. So whatever you're into right now, whatever, things you've fallen into or addictions you have, you don't need to try and end them and say, okay, I'm going to end this addiction and then I'll come to Christ. No, you need to come to Christ right now, because when you come to Christ, those addictions will naturally go away as you walk with him, and you won't even notice it. And eventually you'll look back and you'll be like, man, I don't even feel drawn to this anymore. I don't feel, this sensation that I need to have this drink every day, or I need to go out and smoke this every day, or I need to go out and party every night. Like, I just want to spend time with loved ones, or I want to better my body, because my body is the temple of the Lord. And I know I'm getting off track, but there's a lot that happens in the Old Testament that sometimes we look at and we're like, wow, that really happened. But this is what happened in the old days before Jesus. And like we were talking about yesterday, the slaughtering of animals is how sins were atoned for. And so in these days, people, the way that they did it was, if someone turned against God, if they were cursed, they would stone them and put them to death. And it even later mentions near the end that some towns were even burned, because there were so many people cursed and believing in other gods that the towns were burned and left to ruins, and the towns were set to be never built again, because they felt they were so cursed that the only way that they could be removed is by burning it. Because when we burn something, it literally removes it, destroys it, and there's no getting it back. Once you burn something, you can't get it back. It's gone. So just remember that, there's going to be a lot of people that come into your life and tell you how things are supposed to be, but God has been there for you the whole time, and we have a great Savior, and his name is Jesus. He's there for us every day, and sometimes when we feel like we're far from him, I feel like that's when we're very closest, and we need to remember that we're going to face temptations every day, but we must remember that the best way we can deal with them is to turn to God and say, God, I'm dealing with a lot of these temptations. I need help. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be like my old self. I don't want to fall into these things anymore, because every time I did, I felt depressed and angry, and I didn't like myself. I felt ashamed. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. I need your help. I know that you know the way. Please show me what I need to do. And so that is the end of that reading for today. We are going to be looking into a daily prayer. We are on August 13th. Today's title is called Taste and See, or August 14th, excuse me. The verse connected to it is Psalm chapter 34, verse 8. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. How happy is a person who takes refuge in him. Lord, sometimes my mind does not think the best of you, or I should say, I don't think I am of value to you. For some reason, there is a block in me that says I could not be loved by God. Help me to overcome that, because I want to believe that you are a refuge for me. I need a place to go when I am in trouble. I want to find goodness in the midst of the wicked world. Help me to endure until the end. I want to experience the joy of your salvation. So the best way that we can go closer to God is to seek him fully. And this starts with confessing that you're not perfect and admitting that we need help. And the best that we can do that is to say, God, I need you to show me these ways. And that's a good thing, because we have Jesus, because Jesus knows what we went through. He knows what we go through every day, and I promise you, he can lead you out of that temptation. He can lead you to be a better person, to be a better man, a better woman, better father, better mother, better brother, better sister, whatever you are. He can show you how to be a better version of yourself. And that is today's word. I hope that you guys have had a great Thursday, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, boys.